AM 630.
It's 8:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson and Larry O'Connor. And coming up at 8:37, we'll be picking up this story you may have heard about in the news. It involves the son of a prominent congressman who pleads out on a charge of simple assault. It's a very interesting story, and there's a lot to it. We'll get into the story of Pat Moran coming up at 8:37.
Yeah, it's an outrageous story. But first, Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina announced last week that he is no longer going to stay as a senator. He's now going to take over the role as the new head of Heritage Foundation. And Senator DeMint joins us now. Senator DeMint, would have been nice for you to come on the show last week and announce this to everyone, but we're not going to hold that against you today.
No, we won't, because you've been a good friend of this program.
Good morning, Brian and Larry. And I'm really excited about this because I feel liberated. I don't have to be an apologist for a political party. I can just go out and promote the ideas that I know are going to make this country better, make lives better for a lot of Americans. So, and it's pretty clear that the conservatives aren't going to win any elections until we win the hearts and minds of the American people. And the Heritage Foundation is just perfectly positioned to go out and to win the battle of ideas across the country.
Senator DeMint, I am dying to ask you about your plans at the Heritage Foundation, and I'm going to get to that, but I really need to ask you about the timing here. You famously came out against House Speaker John Boehner's proposal that he sent to the White House for the fiscal cliff deal. That proposal, by the way, that the White House dismissed within, I think, 30 seconds of it arriving at the Oval Office. We're still embroiled in this political issue. You're still a senator. I'm curious, if you were the Speaker of the House right now, if you were in John Boehner's place, what would you be doing? How could you be effectively moving the issues forward and reaching a better deal?
Well, what we have to do is recognize that our country is on a course within the next few months or no more than a few years that we're going to have some kind of economic and monetary meltdown. We're borrowing 46 cents on every dollar we spend.
Wow.
Governor Mitch Daniels last week said clearly the policies now in place are going to bring the country down. So what I would do if I was John Boehner is stand in front of Republicans in the country and say, we know we're not going to stop this reckless spending without an ugly showdown with the president and the Democrats. But now is the time that we have to do this. It's not a matter of revenue. The country has historic levels of revenue right now. We've just doubled the level of spending. And we've got to make the case to the American people. We've got to hold the line. And there's just no other way to do it. To say, okay, we're going to give in now, but then next year we're going to hold the line to save the country is the same thing we did a year and a half ago with the debt ceiling debate, is let's let it go, we'll fix it later. At some point, if we're going to save our country, we have to take a stand. The president's going to keep spending. The Democrats are going to keep spending because it's part of their philosophy that the government is the central player in our economy.
All right.
So what you have to do if you're a leader, instead of what we're hearing from our leadership is we know we're going to cut and run, so let's give in as soon as we can. What we need to do is to say, America, you may not be with us now, but you will by next year if we can stop this rampage towards destruction.
All right, but I hear you, and I'm with you 1,000%. We're at a tipping point in this country, and now is the time that we need to deal with it. If we don't deal with it, as you say, we're going to be in real trouble, and it's not too far down the path. But how do you convince the American people that they need to change dramatically the way they think about government and what government should be? Because right now, we've just gone through an election where people voted for the status quo when it comes to spending. They reelected a president who has done nothing but spend.
And was very clear that he would raise taxes.
And he wants to spend some more.
He said he was going to raise taxes, and he won.
Well, that's why I'm going to Heritage. I mean, I spent most of my life advertising, marketing, doing research, and I can see the problem clearly. Republicans ran on a strategy of making Obama the issue and not talking about what we needed to do. Conservatives need to take control of our message. Hopefully the Republicans or Democrats or some party will join us. But to talk about the positive, optimistic ideas and point to all the states that are doing things that are making lives better for everyone, African Americans and Latinos and women. These things are actually working. There's no place in the world or throughout history that President Obama's policies are working. I mean, you can see where they're playing out in California and Illinois. These states are going to be bankrupt in a few years. And we've got to take that message urgently to the American people and show them. We can point to states. There's a reason why Michigan passed a right-to-work law. It's because 23 other states are eating their lunch. Businesses are moving from Michigan to South Carolina where people aren't forced to join a union. We know our ideas are working, but Republicans have done a lousy job of convincing Americans in a positive way of what really works. And so I want to go out and just take the policy ideas that have been developed with good research at Heritage and show Americans that we can make life better for everyone.
And we hear that there's a big battle going on within the Republican Party. And, some people look at Heritage and they say, they do a lot of good conservative research, but maybe they smoke their pipes and sit in their tweed jackets a little too much. Maybe they're just a little too establishment. Well, sir, I know you, and you're not anywhere. You would never be called an establishment Republican. Are you going to shake things up over there?
Well, if you see me in a pipe, I hope you'll kick me in the pipe and kick me in the rear end. But no, that's not what they do. Actually, I've been in several. I've been working with the Heritage Foundation ever since I came to the House 14 years ago. It was a lot of their papers that inspired me to run. These folks not only have the right ideas, but we can prove they work with research and showing where they're working and all over America. So, no, they are a very dynamic and vibrant organization, and we're going to do even more. I mean, we've tried to convince the politicians here of the right ideas, but the quote I use a lot, Reagan used it, is if you can't make them see the light, make them feel the heat. And that's what I've tried to do in the Senate. I could not convince my own colleagues to do the right thing, so I went out and took my case to the American people, and they helped elect Pat Toomey and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and Jeff Flake and a whole group of new senators who are going to change the Senate. So I have seen the power of taking the right message to the American people. And we just have not done a good enough job of that, and I want to do a lot more of it.
Senator Jim DeMint is our guest, and Senator, you're known in many circles as sort of the godfather of the Tea Party movement. A lot of Tea Party leaders quietly would say off the record that they really wanted you to run for president this last time around. By you going to the Heritage Foundation, other groups like Freedom Works, Americans for Prosperity, they've sort of been seen as aligned with the Tea Party. Does this mean that the Heritage Foundation is going to get much more involved in the grassroots and the Tea Party folks out there?
Well, we're going to be building coalitions with groups all over the country, but we're not going to politicize the research and policy development component of Heritage. But Heritage does have a separate independent division called Heritage Action that's working with a lot of groups around the country to let voters know how their representatives are voting and what the key issues are. And we've got to have both. We've got to have the good policies, but we've got to have the pressure coming from the outside for the politicians to actually pass those policies. So Heritage will be involved in a lot of ways, but one thing we're not going to do is politicize our research and conform it to some political party's position on something. We're going to present good, objective research, and then we're going to take that message to the American people, and I know we can win the battle of ideas.
Senator, I've only got 30 seconds here, but you just reminded me, I got to ask you, Jennifer Rubin and other critics have been highly critical of Heritage Foundation because they see that bringing you in is a very political move, and they shouldn't be a political organization. What's your response?
Well, I don't think they were supporters of Heritage anyway, or the conservative ideas, so I'm not really looking to those folks to give us encouragement. But from the conservative movement, we've gotten real good input, and I think folks know that I've been in the fight and that I'm willing to take a stand, and I think that's what Heritage has done for years.
Thank you, sir.
It's going to be a good marriage.
Hey, don't be a stranger. Come on into the studio. Hang out with us.
You'll hear from me a lot.
Great.
You are welcome here anytime, sir.
Thanks
Senator Jim DeMint, the new guy at